a thorough security check and that producers have appropriate physical security infrastructure in place. Canada also has a world-class compliance and enforcement regime intended to ensure that licensed producers fully comply with the rules in place.
The honourable member for Edmonton Centre will have 6 minutes remaining in his speech when the House next returns to this subject. Statements by members, déclaration des députés.
The honourable member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, for 2 weeks now, actor Vincent Gratton has been calling on the Prime Minister. 2 weeks, and every day Vincent Gratton has been calling on the Prime Minister to legislate to end tax havens. But no answer. Utter silence and utter contempt. Using tax havens to avoid paying taxes is the ultimate injustice. The billions of dollars that are being saved by banks, multinationals, and white-collar criminals are being paid for by us. Solutions exist, and we have proposed them, but the Prime Minister refuses to act. What's immoral should also be illegal. Putting in place sentences and serious fines for tax cheats and their accomplices, repealing the 2 regulations that allow 24 tax havens to be legal, and ratifying the OECD framework against the use of tax havens. By refusing to act, the Liberals are serving white-collar criminals and are against the middle class. It's no joke. Vincent Gratton is speaking on behalf of society, and the Prime Minister is...
Last year was the best year for tourism in over a decade, with nearly 3 million international travelers arriving in August alone. Last week, Travel and Leisure magazine announced Canada as the 2017 Destination of the Year, referencing Canada's growing prominence as a global leader, a nation defined by tolerance and hope. In my riding of Fundy Royal this summer, we warmly welcomed over 300,000 visitors to the Hopewell Rocks and record numbers at Fundy National Park, driving businesses to local hotels, restaurants and attractions, and communities throughout the riding. As we head into winter, it's important to note the tourism season is not over. Cold weather adventures await. So wax up your skis and head to Poley Mountain, fire up your snowmobiles and head to the Caledonian Highlands. Throw on your snowshoes or lace up your skates and head to the Oval in Riverview or the Q-Plex. The very best way to get through a cold Canadian winter is to find something you like and really get out there and enjoy it.
The member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend I was on hand to congratulate Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Leeds Grenville for 40 years of mentoring children. And since 1977, the organization has paired adult mentors with children who can greatly benefit from an adult role model. Last year, the agency provided direct service to 1,782 children throughout Leeds and Grenville, including the traditional match program, as well as a curriculum-based program in schools and an after-school program where children learn skills such as sewing, woodworking, painting, guitar lessons, cooking, and stained glass work, just to name a few. The agency has a hot lunch subsidy courtesy of the Carolyn Sifton Foundation and provides school supplies, clothing, and support for families at Christmas. Volunteers, who are always needed, are the backbone of the agency, and I'm pleased to recognize everyone who has had a hand in helping raise great children in Leeds Grenville through the Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
The honourable member for Ajax.
Mr. Speaker, every street in Ajax is named after a veteran. And during this month of remembrance, I could pick any number to highlight their contribution and how much they did for our country. But I want to focus particularly on one individual, and that's Ajax's first mayor and British Army veteran, Benjamin DeForest Bailey, or as he went by, Pat. Pat, like so many Canadians in World War II, was not a soldier first. He was an engineer and was later recruited into the British Security Coordination, achieving the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Pat was assigned to Project Hydra, an essential project that protected the Allied radio network. Later, he became the Assistant Director at Canada's secret intelligence installation, Camp X. And because of the covert nature of that work, Pat never really got the recognition for the work that he did to keep to promote peace and to do all he could for his country. I just want to say on behalf of a grateful nation and on behalf of our community, to Pat Bailey, who's unfortunately no longer with us, thank you, and we remember you.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, this government is keen to accept accolades for efforts to combat climate change. Regrettably, it's failed to give equal attention to duties to transboundary waters and to address injustices suffered by Indigenous communities from toxic pollution. Canada has been chastised by the UN for failing to protect the Peace Athabasca Delta and the Indigenous communities who depend on it for their survival. In approving Site C, this government ignored pleas by Alberta First Nations to first assess impacts to their treaty and constitutional rights. Successive governments have turned a deaf ear to these communities seeking study of impacts of oil sands emissions on their health, a mandatory duty long vested in the Federal Minister of Health. Despite parliamentary reports recommending regulation of oil sands, toxic emissions, no action. The Lancet report identifies pollution as the greatest global threat to life and health and has decried governments for failure to address this injustice. This government has the power and the responsibility to act. Why does it continue to abandon these Indigenous communities?
The Honourable Member for Laurentide-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, on November 9th, the Laurentide Culture Council held the 28th edition of the Grand Prizes of Laurentide Culture. Over half of the finalists were from my riding, and I'm very proud to say that the winners of 7 in 8 categories are people from my area. I'd like to congratulate Jessica Viau, winner of the Jeune Relève Prize, Lortier Martin, le Théâtre Le Patriote, Polyvalente Saint-Joseph for the Art Education Award, Caroline Dussault, the winner of the Passion Award, Michel Robichaud, the winner of the Excellence Award, and Jean-François Beauchemin, who was Creator of the Year in the Laurentians. All of these prize winners and the hundreds of people involved in my writing are the living proof that culture is essential to the development and visibility of regions like mine, whether it be through dance, theatre, music, literature, and many other arts. They transmit the best of themselves to the citizens of Laurentide-Labelle, and I thank them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, a week ago Sunday, we gathered in Penetanguishene in remembering an amazing man who'd made Wyvale and Penetanguishene his home during his last 23 years. He was a hockey great, among the best Canadians to play the sport. He'd often comment that his success in the game was from studying others. His humility and attention were always present. The longtime captain of the Chicago Blackhawks, he won the Stanley Cup in 1961 and 3 Norris trophies as the NHL's best defenseman. He played on 8 All-Star teams and was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1975. Pierre Pilote passed away on September 7th at the age of 85. He leaves a loving family, dear friends in Penetanguishene, and thousands of hockey fans across the continent with wonderful memories and hockey moments. To his children, Denise, Pierre Jr., Renee, David, and their families, I extend our deepest sympathies and pay tribute to your dad and Papa, Pierre Pilote.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Nipissing to Miskamang.
Mr. Speaker, it's with great sense of excitement that my hometown is getting ready to rock the world. Starting March 17, 2018, North Bay, Ontario will put out the welcome mat for the Ford World Women's Curling Championships. Pendant 9 jours.
Over 9 days, top-ranked women's teams from across the globe, some of them fresh from the 2018 Winter Olympics, will vie for the title.
That these World Championships will have taken place in Ontario. Je tiens à remercier.
I'd like to thank the North Bay Granite Club and the City of North Bay for having obtained this world-class sporting event, and I wish them best of luck with the final preparation.
I tell you, fans and competitors alike are looking for a rocking good time.
The Honourable Member for Yukon.
75 years ago, the Alaska Highway was officially opened with a ceremony at Soldier Summit, one of the greatest infrastructure projects in Canadian and American history. The Alaska Highway opened with 1,700 kilometers of road from Dawson Creek, BC to Delta Junction, Alaska. During the Second World War, the Japanese captured a foothold in Alaska. Through mountains, permafrost, muskeg, swamp, and across numerous rivers, the road was built in less than a year with determination and wartime needed to connect Alaska to the rest of the continent. The construction of the Alaska Highway resulted in monumental changes to the way of life in the Yukon. There were serious effects on the welfare of social societies of some Indigenous peoples along the route, some of whom worked on the project. Today it is a lasting symbol of friendship between Canada and the United States, as well as a huge tourism draw as people from all over the world take this iconic drive and witness the breathtaking scenery and abundance of wildlife. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
One March when she was a child, my mother's elementary school teacher gave out paper lambs and lions to color to celebrate the in like a lamb and out like a lion adage. The boys got lions and the girls got lambs. But my mother told her teacher that she wanted a lion. She was told to behave. Never one to be deterred, she got her lion. A few weeks ago, I caught a reflection in a window that stopped me in my tracks. The reflection of my 37-year-old self was that of a woman I saw when I was 13, that of my mother. While we are indeed her spit and image, my sister and I often pause to be grateful for her less superficial qualities that she strives to have reflected in us. Fearlessness, ferocity, selfishness, a moral compass set on justice, the heart of a lioness. So on the occasion of you entering your 7th decade, Mother, we have deep gratitude for your love and for living your life and redefining an adage. You came in like a lion and we don't see any change in the forecast. Happy 60th birthday, Mama.
The member for Don Valley East.
Mr. Speaker, on November 15th, 3 dynamic individuals from 3 different continents were the recipients of the first Global Pluralism Award. As well, there were honorary recipients from 7 additional countries. The award recognizes these exemplary world leaders who have responded creatively to the challenges of diversity. They have shown that difference is not a threat, but an opportunity that should be embraced. The award ceremony was presided by His Highness the Aga Khan and the Honorable Beverly McLaughlin. The winners were selected by an independent international jury chaired by the Right Honorable Joe Clark, former Prime Minister of Canada. Each recipient is awarded $50,000 to further their work in support of pluralism. As the recipients stated, you have put pluralism on the world stage and given us the momentum to carry out our work. Mr. Speaker, I congratulate them all. Thank you.
The honourable member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, last Wednesday, I was thrilled to drive on the new 137-kilometre road connecting Inuvik to Tuktoyaktuk on the shores of the Arctic Ocean. I was joined by the Governor-General, Ministers of Infrastructure and Crown and Indigenous Relations, the GNBT Premier and GNBT Cabinet Ministers, and by community members to celebrate a project that had been discussed for decades. As a former Transportation Minister with the Government of Northwest Territories, during the early planning stages, I was especially pleased to be included on this inaugural trip. Connecting our country from coast to coast to coast has long been a dream of many Canadians. Now this first link is complete, it's more important than ever to ensure that all Northerners are connected to the same services and opportunities available to those in the South. Congratulations to the residents of Tuk, Inuvik, and the entire Inuvialuit region on this very historic day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte.
Mr. Speaker, as you know, this month is Hindu Heritage Month. Since the first Hindu immigrants arrived in Canada at the beginning of the 20th century, Hindu Canadians have made significant contributions across various fields such as science, education, medicine, law, politics, business, and many, many more fields. They've been a positive force in society and have helped shape Canada into being a very multicultural and positive society by integrating traditions and festivals such as Diwali, Durga Puja, and Navaratri. Hindu Canadians have also helped build our country into the greatest place to live, work, and raise families. On behalf of the people of Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte, I would like to thank and congratulate Hindu Canadians all across Canada on Hindu Heritage Month. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Charlottetown.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday was World Children's Day. I was honored to be invited to the United Nations in New York to witness a kids' takeover of the proceedings. Children from all over the world gave inspirational presentations to the UN delegates. Canada's representative was Basil Al-Rashdan. Basil is a 12-year-old Syrian refugee who now proudly calls Canada, and more specifically Charlottetown, home. He attends St. Jean Elementary School, where he is often called the Little Mayor. His school projects focus on themes of empathy and fairness. At the UN, he spoke of his journey from Syria through Jordan to Prince Edward Island in 2015, and how his initial fear and apprehension was, over time, transformed into pride, hope, optimism, and happiness. Before he spoke, he received a phone call from the Prime Minister wishing him good luck. Basil represented Canada well, raising our voice, his voice, for international children's rights today and every day. Thank you, Basil. Canada is very proud of you.
The Honourable Member for Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing. Small businesses are the engines of our economy, but in the north, their importance is even more crucial. This week, the Hearst Economic Development Corporation will recognize the contribution of young business people at the Gala Prix Panache. It will also underscore the 65th anniversary of Ted Wilson's Menwear that is still being run by the Wilson family.
Commerce in Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing honored exceptional businesses. In Kapuskasing, the Chamber handed out awards to Blooming Bouquet Flowers and Gift Shop, the Cap Royal Theatre, Cap Healthy Kids Community, Alain Murray, Kapuskasing Agri Services, Kevin Prevost and Eastview Chevrolet GMC, Chez Lisette Restaurant, Cabin Fever Motorsports and Marine, et Simon and Louise Dubosc.
And Simon and Louise Dubosc, owners of La Boulangerie, who received the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Are honored In Motion Fitness, Jim and Debbie Turner, and the Red Griffin Award for Community Involvement went to Peter and Betty Seidel. I congratulate winners, nominees, and all our small businesses who keep communities vital and strong.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, today is Navy Day, a day dedicated to the men and women of the Royal Canadian Navy, the Canadian Coast Guard, and the Exceptional Sailor Program. Our senior service traces its roots back to Tudor England, where a standing navy was established long before a standing army, and of course an air force was still a theoretical Da Vinci dream. The Royal Canadian Navy's beginnings date back to 1910, growing quickly during the First World War, and by the end of the Second World War, Canada had the third largest navy in the world. The Canadian Coast Guard was formed in 1962 and now boasts a fleet of more than 100 vessels of various purposes and sizes. Now, Mr. Speaker, challenges do remain with procurement and shipbuilding programs, but today, Mr. Speaker, we salute the men and women who have served in war and peace, who serve now in Canadian waters, and around the world we salute their service and the Navy's motto, Parati Vero Parati, ready, aye ready.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for London West.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday was Universal Children's Day. In light of this, I am proud to get up in the House and talk about the work our government has done with the introduction of the Canada Child Benefit, which will help lift an estimated 300,000 children out of poverty. Initiatives like Bread Not Stones, a United Church of Canada project, helps raise awareness to reduce child poverty in Canada. We welcome several representatives of this initiative this afternoon. Our guests are honored to present all MPs with rag dolls that act as powerful symbols of child poverty. I encourage all my colleagues in the House to pick up their Doll of Hope in their lobby. Bread Not Stones and their event partners, Campaign 2000 and Citizens for Public Justice urge everyone to keep working for our most vulnerable children until the job is done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve easy access to information that is correct from the Canada Revenue Agency, but the Auditor General revealed today that officers in call centres did not answer about half the calls that they received. This creates confusion and does not lead to fair taxation for the middle class and small businesses. Why are they not getting anything other than a busy tone when they need answers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize that we will surely have a significant discussion today regarding the Auditor General's report. It's an excellent report, and it will be useful for our government to improve services. We recognize that there are things that we should have done better and that we will do better. At the same time, it must be recognized that 10 years of a government that cut services, especially towards the end, to balance their budget at all costs, well, that leaves consequences. We are working very hard to offer citizens services correctly.
Chef de l'opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister's Canada Revenue Agency is notoriously difficult. The Auditor General reports that 29 million calls from Canadians went unanswered. Canadians who need advice on their tax situation are blocked, given a busy signal, told to call back, or are disconnected. But when his friend, Stephen Bronfman, needed an answer on his tax situation, the Prime Minister answered the call pretty darn quick and gave him the answer that he was looking for. So why is it that Liberal friends get their calls answered and the answers they want, and ordinary Canadians have to be put on hold?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, today we're going to be talking about the Auditor General's report, as we should. It's an excellent report and actually a very helpful report. We realize that there are many things that we could have done better and we will do better, and we thank the Auditor General for his work. At the same time, we have to understand that when the previous government chose to cut government services, particularly through the last years of its mandate, in order to balance the budget at all costs, there are consequences. We are working hard to restore services to Canadians at the level they expect, and we have more work to do to fix their messes.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's ridiculous, Mr. Speaker. You know, I bet that the accounts payable calls get answered pretty quick under this Liberal government. Now, today we've learned that the Minister did not get the Ethics Commissioner's permission to introduce his pension legislation, even though that he claimed otherwise. This legislation enables the exact product that his family company specializes in, and for which the Finance Minister himself lobbied for before he entered politics. So, very quickly, did the Prime Minister ever request assurances from the Finance Minister that he was working with the Ethics Commissioner before introducing the legislation?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, all members in this House work with the Ethics Commissioner to ensure that their personal finances, their personal interests are in line with the expectations that Canadians have of all citizens, of all members of this House, to live up to the high expectations of citizens. All of us, including the Finance Minister, work with the Ethics Commissioner and listen to and follow her counsel.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister insisted yesterday that the Minister of Finance had always worked with the Ethics Commissioner. I'm going to ask again, did the Prime Minister make sure with the Minister of Finance that the Ethics Commissioner allowed him to present his legislative measure on pensions, namely Bill C-27? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in this House, there are all kinds of attacks, sometimes personal, sometimes with a basis on one side or the other. That is how we know that a government is going to be rigorous in its approach to different issues. But we are working with the Ethics Commissioner to go beyond partisanship, to make sure that Canadians can trust that everyone who sits in this House is respecting the rules and is worthy of Canadians' trust. That is what the Minister of Finance did. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
These Liberals only work with the Ethics Commissioner after they get caught breaking the ethics laws. So let's be clear. Either the Finance Minister lied to the Prime Minister, or the Prime Minister didn't even bother to ask, or the Prime Minister simply believes that Liberals are just above the rules. So which is it? Did anyone ever tell the Prime Minister that his Finance Minister was cleared to table Bill C-27 before the bill was introduced in Parliament?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every member member of this House, when they arrive to serve, work with the Ethics Commissioner to ensure that their personal situation, their financial situation is in order and aligned with the expectations, the high expectations that Canadians have of each of us in this House. The Minister of Finance worked with the Ethics Commissioner to ensure that the decisions he would take, whether it was by putting in a screen, whether it was various personal dispositions, to ensure that Canadians could have confidence that everyone in this House is following the rules.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Neigette, Témiscouata, Les Basques.
We ask about the Phoenix Space System fiasco. Every answer of the Liberals is to blame the Conservatives for this. Against the advice of their experts and public servants, they decided to push the button. They cannot hide behind Conservatives. They have underestimated the problems. They still don't have a comprehensive plan. And worse, they don't know the full extent and causes of those problems. And while they act like amateurs, hundreds of thousands of public servants are feeling the pain. Mr. Speaker, how long will Liberals keep throwing good money after the bad? Who will be held accountable and who will fix this mess?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government did not create this mess, but we are going to fix this mess. The previous government...
Order. Order. I know that everybody wants to take part in question period, but of course the way it works is that only a few members do, and the rest, of course, be required to listen and not interrupt. And I know members don't want to break the rules. The Right Honourable Prime Minister has the floor. Order.
Mr. Speaker, Conservative government bought this system, created this system, and we will fix this system. It is unacceptable that Canadians be not paid for the work that they're doing. That's why we're working so hard with different ministries, with different public servants, with different unions to ensure that we fix this Phoenix pay system. It is something that Canadians expect, and it's something that we're going to fix.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Neigette, Témiscouata, Les Basques.
The system was good to go.
Not only do the Liberals have no idea of the causes and extent of the problems, they're making the situation worse. The Auditor General was clear. Given the current situation, fixing Phoenix will take several years and could cost us over $1 billion. The answers of the Prime Minister is the same answer that he gave 2 years ago, last year, and that he'll probably give us next year. When Canadians buy something that doesn't work, they get reimbursed. My question, Mr. Speaker, is if the Liberals kept the receipt to get their refund, or are they just going to pass the cost on to Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as Canadians know, it is the former Conservative government that bought this system, that developed it, and that fired personnel that was there to ensure the transition. We are fixing the Phoenix system. We are working with the public service, with unions, with all partners in the private sector in order to improve and fix the system. We are going to work hard because it is unacceptable for people to not be paid the money that is owed to them. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Hello, you have reached the Canada Revenue Agency. Your call is important to us. But seriously, if you want to talk to someone, good luck. Half the time you will get cut off, and 2 out of 3 you will get to speak to someone. And if you do speak to us, there's a 30% chance you'll be given incorrect information. Have a nice day. While the Liberals allow their friends to take advantage of tax havens, they're abandoning citizens that need help. Is that how the Liberals offer public services to Canadians and Quebecers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, order. Mr. Speaker, we were elected with a promise of improving services for Canadians. We recognize that there was a lot of work to do because during the last years of the Conservative government, there were many cuts made to the Canada Revenue Agency. That is why in our first budget we invested millions of dollars to improve services to Canadians. We recognize, however, that there's a great deal of work to do, and we are working on it. We thank the Auditor General for his report, and we will continue to work together.
Valley.
Do we all get the sense that even he doesn't believe his own spin anymore? The PM needs to change his slogan from real change to please hold, your call is important to us. Waiting time is forever. The Auditor General has exposed how this government is totally failing Canadians. CRA has been blocking half the calls, and 1/3 that actually make it through get bad or wrong advice. For those looking to avoid paying their taxes, Liberals have a good answer for them. For Canadians trying to pay their taxes, they put them on hold. So let's all listen to the Prime Minister explain how this mess is helping out the middle class and those working hard to join it.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in the last election, two parties, the Conservatives and the NDP, committed to balance the budget at all costs, including through cutting services to Canadians. Yes, that's exactly what happens, Mr. Speaker. Canadians get...
Order. Members wish to shorten question period. Order. Right Honourable Prime Minister has the floor.
This is exactly what happens when governments choose to balance the books at all costs. They cut services to Canadians, and Canadians suffer. We are working hard to fix their messes. We're working hard to improve services for Canadians. We thank the Auditor General for his report, which is very helpful, and we will endeavour to do even more to serve Canadians the way they need to be.
Order. This is a place where there are criticisms that fly back and forth, and most members can hear them without reacting. I think the rest are capable of doing the same.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance swore that he had put his shares in a blind trust. It turns out that he had not. The Minister of Finance assured us that he had disclosed all of his holdings. It turns out that he was fined by the Commissioner for having an undisclosed company. Since the beginning of the session, the Minister has repeated that he has always worked with the Ethics Commissioner, and strangely today, the Globe and Mail revealed that the Minister never worked with the Commissioner on his bill C-27. Can the Prime Minister tell us how Canadians can still trust the Minister of Finance? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is expected of all parliamentarians in this place is to work with the Ethics Commissioner, what the Minister of Finance did as soon as he took office. He followed the recommendations of the Ethics Commissioner, including setting up a screen to prevent a conflict of interest, which was done from the beginning and is still in place. The Minister announced that he will go even further. He divested himself of all his shares in Morneau Chapelle, put all his assets in a blind trust in order to work on the important work that he's been doing for 2 years. And I understand that the opposition doesn't want to talk about the good things the Minister of Finance is doing. Our unemployment rate is the lowest as it has ever been. We are doing good work, and the opposition doesn't want to admit it. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. The Minister of Finance's so-called ethics screen is thinning day by day. After having tabled Bill C-27, which will help his own family's businesses, the only argument remaining for the minister is to say that the sale of his shares and his donation now grant him integrity as though by magic. But what does this say about his level of integrity over the last 2 years? Will the Prime Minister finally admit what every Canadian knows, which is that his Minister of Finance has been in a situation of conflict of interest for 2 years? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. What all Canadians know is that in this place, the Ethics Commissioner is responsible for preserving the integrity of Parliament. They expect, like we expect, for all parliamentarians to work with the Ethics Commissioner and respect her recommendations, which is adapted to everyone's situation. We have followed what the Ethics Commissioner said. The Minister of Finance has always followed her recommendations, and he will continue to work with her to continue to respect the highest level of integrity that Canadians expect.
Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister are the two most powerful lawmakers in Canada. The Finance Minister Minister's Bill C-27 will directly benefit his billion-dollar family business, Morneau Chappelle. And he still held shares in Morneau Chappelle when he introduced that bill. The Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, and his staff all claim he's been working with the Ethics Commissioner from the start. But now, the Prime Minister and 2 of his cabinet ministers are under investigation by the Ethics Commissioner. How can Canadians trust this Prime Minister?
The Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What's expected of all parliamentarians is to work with the Ethics Commissioner, who's responsible to safeguard the integrity of this Parliament. And the Finance Minister has always worked in full transparency with the Ethics Commissioner, has always followed her recommendations, will continue to do so, and on his own accord has decided to go above and beyond, divesting all his shares in Morneau Chappelle and placing all of his assets in a blind trust so that he can continue to do the important work, avoid any further distraction. I understand the opposition. They don't want to talk about his record because when it comes to the economy, he steered the ship in the right direction for the last 2 years, creating 500,000 jobs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I have to ask the member for Abbotsford not to be talking throughout the time when someone else has the floor. We'd love to hear his voice. He's a great baritone, but only when he has the floor. The honourable member for Lakeland.
Canadians expect the Prime Minister to safeguard integrity, but this Prime Minister is the first Canadian Prime Minister under investigation by the Ethics Commissioner. And the Finance Minister is being investigated for using his public powers to enrich himself and his family. He claims he worked with the Ethics Commissioner and that there was a so-called ethical screen in place, but apparently she wasn't aware they were working together because now she's investigating him for it. And obviously that screen was a wide-open window. Of course, he also said he told her about his French company, but she didn't know about that either, and she fined him for hiding it. So again, how can Canadians trust the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, or any
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, well, that conflict of interest screen, which was put in place following the recommendation of the Ethics Commissioner, which she deemed to be the best measure of compliance, was a measure that was good enough for the member for Milton, for Denis Lebel when they were in office. Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister has always worked with the Ethics Commissioner, will always work with the Ethics Commissioner. He's mentioned he'd go above and beyond to continue to the work that he's done remarkably well over the last 2 years for the Canadian economy and for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Well, he made his shares in Morneau Chappelle go above and beyond, Mr. Speaker. Let's break this down. He had shares in a pension company and introduced a pension bill. That pension bill was on targeted benefit pension plans. His company designs targeted benefit pension plans. The model of choice, New Brunswick. His company had designed New Brunswick's system of targeted benefit pension plans. Mr. Speaker, is there anything about his bill that was not previously written by his own company?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've mentioned time and time again, the Finance Minister has always worked with the Ethics Commissioner in full transparency, disclosing all of his assets and following her recommendation, the path she set forward on this side of the House. We respect the Ethics Commissioner's work and we follow her recommendations to make sure that all rules are followed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Carleton.
But the Ethics Commissioner did not recommend that this minister could introduce a bill on pensions while he had shares in a pension company. He made ill-gotten gains that he now claims he's going to give back to charity. Now that will entitle him to a massive tax break. Now there are numerous tax benefits you can get for donating to charity. Which one will this finance minister use?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Finance tabled Bill C-27 to make sure that Canadians have a retirement that is secure, stable, and dignified, as Canadians can expect when they retire. The Minister of Finance has always worked with the Ethics Commissioner, implemented a measure that was recommended to him, which is a conflict of ethics or interest screen, in order to prevent any appearance of conflict of interest. The Minister of Finance will continue to work with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that her directives are always upheld. The member for Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. The Liberal Party's main fundraiser sent money to a tax haven. This morning, the NDP asked that Stephen Brompham testify before the Finance Committee, and the Liberals refused. The Minister of Finance did not place his company in a trust. He also tabled Bill C-27, which allowed his company, Morneau Chappelle, to make millions without speaking to the Conflict of Interest Commissioner. Is that how Liberals govern? by supporting tax havens and tabling bills to make themselves and their millionaire friends rich. The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to be able to speak to our track record, unlike my colleague on the other side. Our government has fully committed to fighting tax evasion and tax avoidance. In our last two budgets, we have invested nearly $1 billion. And we are on the right track. We are on our way to reclaiming $25 billion. Our plan is yielding results. We are targeting 4 jurisdictions per year. We're currently working on finalizing hiring 100 auditors. We have transferred many cases to criminal investigations.
Christina Bulkley Valley.
So let's lay out the facts for this Prime Minister. One, before entering, quote, public service, the Finance Minister advocated for targeted pensions. Makes sense. He made millions off of it. Two, his company buys Mercer Canada, who runs the pensions for 93,000 Canada Post workers and retirees. Then, after being elected and still owning and controlling millions of dollars of shares in Morneau Shepell, he sponsors a bill that would benefit Morneau Shepell and him personally. If this doesn't qualify as a conflict of interest in the heart and mind of this Prime Minister, my question for him is, what does?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What the Minister of Finance did when he arrived to serve the public, he did what every minister and parliamentarian is expected to do, which is to follow the recommendations of the Ethics Commissioner based on their situation. The recommendation he followed was to set up a screen to prevent conflict of interest, which was considered to be the best measure. The Minister of Finance, over the last 2 years, reduced child poverty by 40% in this country, helped 900,000 seniors with the guaranteed income supplement, created 500,000 jobs, and we can be proud of that track record, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, that's not true. The Minister of Finance did not sit down with the Ethics Commissioner. He did it after the fact, after he was in a conflict of interest. We know that Morneau Shepell sets up targeted pension plans, and that's what's in C-27. The question is a simple one. How can the minister consider that he's not in a conflict of interest when he regulates and holds shares in that type of business? How can the Minister of Finance say he is not in a conflict of interest? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. By working with the Ethics Commissioner, who is responsible for making that determination, Mr. Speaker. That's what the Minister of Finance has always done as soon as he arrived in Ottawa, as is expected of all parliamentarians. He revealed his situation, he was transparent, he followed the recommendations he was told to follow to respect our laws and to uphold the highest standards of integrity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Beauce. What the Minister of Finance did is he led the House into error. What we learned today through the Globe and Mail, we found out that he decided to work with the Ethics Commissioner after he had been caught in a conflict of interest. That is the real situation. There are no ethics. And, Mr. Speaker, it's important to note that he benefited from a bill. He received money that increased the value of his shares. He was in a conflict of interest. Why is the Prime Minister continuing to protect the Minister of Finance? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I think the member for Beauce knows the way that this House works and the institutions that protect the integrity of this House. An institution that we respect on this side is the Conflict of Interest Commissioner. The Minister of Finance presented his situation to the Commissioner and followed her recommendations. The Commissioner will continue to ensure that he continues to divest himself of his shares in Morneau Shepell. He will donate the profits to charity. He has put all of his holdings in a blind trust, and he has been working in the interest of Canadians for 2 years.
Mr. Speaker, for 2 years, the Minister of Finance led Canadians to believe that his personal assets were in a blind trust. That wasn't true. He controlled his millions of Morneau Shepell shares the entire time. He also said that he worked with the Ethics Commissioner before introducing pension reform legislation that just happened to benefit his family business. We know that that wasn't true, and she never signed off on that blatant conflict of interest. Why should Canadians trust this finance minister when he's under investigation yet again for misleading Canadians and breaking the rules?
Yes. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I think Canadians can trust the Ethics Commissioner to do her work and to instruct parliamentarians how to behave in order to ensure that the rules are upheld, and how to avoid a conflict of interest. The minister has always worked with a conflict of interest from the very beginning, set up a conflict of interest screen, which the commissioner estimated to be the best measure possible, and the minister will continue to work with the commissioner.
2 years, the finance minister sheltered millions of Morneau Chappelle shares in a numbered company, shares that skyrocketed after he introduced pension reform legislation that benefited his family company. Now that he's been caught and forced to dispose of those shares, he says that he can now start to work for Canadians. I guess we know who he's been working for the last 2 years, Mr. Speaker. He misled Canadians about his personal assets. He misled Canadians about working with the Ethics Commissioner. He's under investigation yet again. Why should Canadians trust anything that he says?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, if the member wants to talk about the work that the Minister of Finance is doing for Canadians, we can talk about it. We can talk about the child tax benefit that got 300,000 children out of poverty. We can talk about the guaranteed income supplement, which helped 900,000 seniors get out of poverty. We can talk about job creation, 500,000 jobs created, the highest job creation rate over the last 10 years. Their track record is the worst job creation track record, and what we're doing is working for Canadians, and that's what the minister has been doing for 2 years.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we celebrated the International Day for the Rights of Children, but there's really not that much to celebrate. According to a report from Campaign 2000, nearly 1 in 5 children lives in a family affected by poverty. And even worse, 1 in 4 Aboriginal children, or rather 1 in 3 on reserve, lives in poverty. How can this still happen in 2017? What is the government waiting for to finally take responsibility for this and lift all children out of poverty? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank and congratulate my colleague for her question. I would remind her that our government takes this issue very seriously, and I would remind her that across Canada, 6,000 families, many families are receiving more money under the child benefit than they were before. This has allowed us to lift 300,000 children out of poverty, and this has allowed us to lower the poverty rate among children to the lowest rate it's ever been in our great nation. Thank you.
North Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, Campaign's 2000's latest report has confirmed yet again staggering rates of poverty for Indigenous children both on and off reserve. And the message from today's Parliamentary Budget Officer's report is equally clear. If the Liberals are really serious about addressing child poverty, they need an action plan that includes concrete targets and a timeline to meet them. If 2 whole years in office wasn't enough for this government to act, can they tell us how much longer they're going to ask these children to wait?
Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I would like to thank the member, our colleague, for asking this very relevant question. This government is the first government that will put into place a poverty reduction strategy. We are working very hard with partners around the country, which have been waiting for us for a long time in building this strategy. They are very, very dedicated to assist us in making poverty something that is going not only to be falling over time, but disappearing in the long term. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, access to reliable broadband internet is essential and even mandatory in today's economy. This is particularly an issue in rural areas in Canada, where internet and telecommunications systems don't really meet a basic level, and sometimes there isn't even access to broadband internet. Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy today to ask my colleague, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, how the Connect to Innovate program will manage to provide better internet service to Canadians. The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I want to welcome my colleague for Lac-Saint-Jean.
Internet à haute vitesse.
High-speed internet is not a luxury, it is essential. That is why, yesterday, I announced an investment of over $290 million for all the regions of Quebec. 100,000 households will benefit from this, Mr. Speaker. 100,000. Soon we will be announcing details for each region. Mr. Speaker, this investment will create a lot of opportunities for all regions. Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, it seems that the minister doesn't really know how many Canadians have fought with ISIS and with other terrorist organizations in the world. The figures he gave us yesterday seem to conflict with those given by his own department. We know that some have come back to Canada, others plan to return, and still others weren't authorized to travel in the first place because their hostile intentions were known. Can the minister finally give us some real numbers and show some transparency?
Mr. Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, I did give the member the numbers yesterday. I would also inform him that in the usual course, we publish an annual report on the threat assessment with respect to Canada. That's a normal thing that the Government of Canada does periodically to make sure that Canadians are fully informed about the nature of the threats that Canada faces. And that next threat assessment will be made public in the course of the next several weeks. And the honourable member and all Canadians will be able to be right up to date with all of the necessary information.
The honourable member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Well, Mr. Speaker, we can wait for reports and wait for reports, but meanwhile we have terrorists who fought abroad who are coming back to Canada. We need information more quickly. Now, the minister has said that he wants to have reintegration programs for these ISIS combatants. Yesterday, the minister made all sorts of excuses for not arresting these traitors in Canada or giving us information about them. How can he tell Canadians that their safety is not being compromised? Can he at least tell us if they're under surveillance 24/7? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Yesterday, the number is approximately 60. That is exactly the same number as under the previous government, of which the honourable gentleman is a defender. And yes, indeed, I can assure him that all of the police and security agencies of Canada are doing their job to make sure that the threat is properly contained.
Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
My colleague opposite didn't answer my colleague's question, so I'll give him another chance. Of the number of people that have been identified as fighting for ISIS and have returned to Canada, how many of those persons are under 24-hour surveillance?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member, I am sure, would not want me to engage in operational discussions on the floor of the House of Commons that could, in fact, disclose the security posture of the Government of Canada. What the honourable member needs to know is the RCMP, CSIS, and all of the other relevant agencies of the Government of Canada are doing their job to take every necessary step to make sure that Canadians are safe and at the same time that all the rights and freedoms of Canadian citizens are properly respected.
For Calgary-Nose Hill.
Well, the answer to that question should be all of them.
That's right, that's right.
Mr. Speaker, it concerns me that the minister won't give that number. I wonder what he's hiding, especially given the fact that the Prime Minister yesterday said that even one ISIS fighter posed a threat to this country, and we know that these people have fought for a group that have beheaded people, burnt Allied soldiers, raped women, and indeed carried out terrorist attacks on countries around the world, including Canada. So why aren't every single one of these people under 24-hour surveillance?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the police of this country, particularly the RCMP, but also in collaboration with all other police forces in Canada, and the CBSA at the border, and CSIS, our intelligence service, do the monitoring to make sure that every threat to the national security of Canada is properly monitored, surveilled, and investigated, and when evidence is found of any offence, Mr. Speaker, charges are laid.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, the U.S. government has confirmed that it is ending temporary residence permits for thousands of Haitians living in the U.S. And this summer, thousands of them chose to come to Canada, a situation that this government should have seen coming. But they didn't. We know that this situation may happen again in coming months. So, will the government do what it should have done from the very beginning and suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada will always be an open and welcoming country to those seeking refuge. However, our government is determined to ensure that we have ordered immigration. And we've always said that crossing borders in an irregular fashion will not guarantee a status in this country. There are very strict rules that need to be followed. We are deploying efforts to raise awareness among those who may want to come to Canada after their permits have been withdrawn in the U.S. We want to make sure that they understand Canadian laws when it comes to immigration, and we will be launching other initiatives to raise awareness so that these people understand the rules. Thank you.
Vancouver East.
With Trump's latest move, close to 60,000 Haitians in the U.S. may face deportation. This will no doubt lead to more Haitians trying to cross to Canada through irregular crossings. With winter setting in, it is dangerous, and no one wants to see more tragedies. It is time for Canada to reconsider the Safe Third Country Agreement. The UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination's most recent report called for Canada to at least temporarily suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement. Will the government do just that?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Ministry of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, as I've just said, we have always said that crossing Canadian borders in an irregular fashion will not lead to a guaranteed status in Canada. We are still working on efforts to raise awareness among those whose temporary protection in the U.S. may be withdrawn. We want to make sure that they understand Canadian immigration rules. And many members of Parliament will go to the U.S. or are currently in the U.S. to raise awareness among those people so that we are sure that people understand how our asylum system works and to ensure that we have the means that we need to educate those people about our immigration rules.
Lampton.
Mr. Speaker, I've asked the Revenue Minister countless times, and she refuses to come clean with Canadians. We have proof that this minister changed the policy interpretation for approving diabetics for the disability tax credit. Now, 80% of the disability tax credit applicants who used to be approved are being rejected. She rejects 80% of vulnerable diabetics, but goes after 0% of wealthy Liberal friends hiding money offshore. So, Mr. Speaker, when will the Revenue Minister focus efforts on real tax cheats instead of targeting the vulnerable?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to ensuring that all Canadians receive the credits and benefits that they're entitled to. For my colleague across the way, I would say again that the eligibility requirements for this credit have not changed. It's important to recognize that far too many Canadians live with problems that require help. Allowing low-income workers to keep more of their hard-earned money by increasing the working income tax benefit by $500 million a year starting in 2019 is a possible solution. We are continuing to work for Canadians, particularly the most vulnerable. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans-Charlevoix. After all of their reckless spending, this government has finally run out of taxpayer money. So, to pay for this, the Liberals are now taking money from Canadians. And this time, it's persons with disabilities who are paying the price. One of my constituents was recently refused a tax credit for the first time in 20 years. The reason? Well, their illness only affects them 90% of the time. Why is this government counting the number of seconds that persons with disabilities are affected instead of the billions of dollars that the Prime Minister's friends are hiding in tax havens? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to ensuring that all Canadians receive the benefits and credits that they are entitled to. We are moving forward with a national law for persons with disabilities that will eliminate barriers and focus on accessibility for all Canadians living with a disability. Mr. Speaker, we have facilitated access to the disability tax credit. We have simplified the forms. We have allowed certain types of nurses to fill out forms if people don't have a family doctor. And in Budget 2017, we are continuing to work for the most vulnerable in our society.
Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals denying diabetics and chronically ill Canadians tax credits is a heartless Liberal policy. And it gets worse. The Liberals' asinine policy to cut pay for our injured members of the Canadian Armed Forces is also wrong. These members have sustained mental and physical injuries in service to Canada, and instead of thanking them, what does this defence minister do? He cuts their pay. When will this Liberal government reverse this cold-hearted policy and actually start to support our injured troops and give back the money that they deserve?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, through our defence policy, our government is committed to providing the unprecedented support to our people and their families. This government is committed to ensuring that our military members receive their fair compensation for the service to their country. That is why our government has recently approved a 6.3% pay raise for most of its members. In addition to their pay, Mr. Speaker, our members are given allowances for performing unique duties for being exposed to higher risk and hardship. Most of these allowances are also benefited with a 5.1% increase, Mr. Speaker. Our members will be well compensated for the important work they do on behalf of our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, constituents in my riding of Guelph, like Pierre Fogel, who leads the Pearl Research Station, have been working on climate change research initiatives for many years, accumulating data for longitudinal studies. Climate science in the Canadian Arctic plays an important role globally in monitoring the effects of climate change. Can the Minister of Science please update this House as to how we are supporting this important research? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government understands the importance of Arctic science as we address the challenges of climate change in the North. Recently, I joined the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change to announce $1.6 million to continue the operations and research at this unique facility that monitors the changes we're seeing in the Arctic atmosphere and the environment. I want to thank the member from Guelph for his important work on this important issue.
Honorable.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Agriculture has been absent from the TPP and NAFTA negotiating tables, and supply management is under attack. Yesterday, the Parliamentary Secretary created uncertainty in the agricultural world by refusing to confirm that supply management is excluded from the TPP. Meanwhile, the U.S. is pushing even further with demands to end supply management. Mr. Speaker, is supply management just a bargaining chip for the Prime Minister to use after his insulting attitude toward the leaders of the 10 other TPP partners? Dairy, egg, and chicken producers want answers, not excuses. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we support all dairy producers, as well as egg and chicken producers. We have always supported supply management, and we've always been clear. We will continue to support our farmers, as well as farming interests in Canada and farmers' families. The honourable colleagues across the way should talk to the member for both to try to convince him to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Trois-Rivières. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After promises to invest billions in infrastructure, we've learned that 20% of Via Rail's trains will be out of service by 2024. Worse, in the Windsor-Quebec corridor, the negative effects will be felt as early as 2020. If nothing is done, communities could lose their passenger rail service, and Canada will have missed another opportunity to effectively fight greenhouse gases. Mr. Speaker, does the minister believe in passenger rail transport? And if so, when will he take action and reinvest in Via Rail? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, of course, our commitment to rail passenger transport is not in question. That's why in Budget 2016, we allocated $7.7 million to look into the replacement of Via Rail trains. We've been doing this work, and we've been working closely with Via Rail, and in due time, we will be replacing these trains to update and modernize passenger rail service. The Honourable Member for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle. After going to Paris in September, the Minister of Transport went to Seoul on behalf of the federal government last week. His goal was to support keeping the headquarters of the World Anti-Doping Agency in Montreal. Montrealers are proud to have hosted this headquarters since 2001. Can the Minister update my constituents and all Montrealers about our government's work to keep the headquarters in Montreal? Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Transport. I'd be pleased to, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle for her excellent question. In fact, we are very proud that the World Anti-Doping Agency will stay in Montreal until at least 2031. This is an example of great teamwork between three levels of government: the City of Montreal, the Province of Quebec, and the federal government. We've been working with Montreal International to keep this agency in Montreal, a great Canadian city, and the headquarters will be there until at least 2031. Thank you.
Honourable member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer report came out today on the Fall Economic Statement 2017, and I got bad news. The budgetary outlook means more deficits as far as the eye can see. Now, the Minister of Finance appeared at the Finance Committee, and we didn't ask him just once when would the budget be balanced, but 13 times. He evaded it every single time. We asked him the question, what day would it be balanced? He didn't know. On what week would it be balanced? He didn't know. What decade would it be balanced? He didn't know. So, Mr. Speaker, since Batman isn't in the House today, is there any minister in this government who can tell us when will the budget be balanced?
Order. I want to remind the honourable member for Calgary-Shepherd that we don't call each other names in this place, even if, like in some cases, some might consider that a compliment. Others, they wouldn't. Either way, we don't do that, so I'd ask him not to do that in the future. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance, I see rising.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, if we place ourselves back in 2015 during the last election campaign, Canadians were wondering, are we in or heading into a recession? This government made smart investments in infrastructure, jumpstart the Canada Child Benefit to make sure that our economy starts growing again. And it has grown, Mr. Speaker, by 500,000 jobs over the last 2 years. And what I can say, Mr. Speaker, is we're very proud that our debt to GDP ratio has gone down from 32.5% when we took office to 30.5%, and will fall below the levels it was in 1977 in due time in the course of the next few years. Thank you, Mr.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, Ottawa is offloading its problems onto other people and onto the provinces. They're not the ones who are going to be stuck with the health and safety problems caused by legalizing cannabis, but they're going to be the ones collecting the money and giving it to their friends. The Government of Quebec and First Nations are calling for the government to defer the legislation by a year. It's irresponsible to rush headlong into something that no one is actually ready for. Can the Prime Minister tell us why legalizing pot is so urgent? The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Pleased to stand up to speak to Bill C-45, which is currently being debated. Our government has been and will always be committed to moving forward to legalize cannabis, strictly regulate and restrict access to cannabis in order to keep it out of the hands of children and the proceeds out of the hands of criminals. We are going to continue to work collaboratively with the provinces and territories, with municipalities, based on the robust consultation that we've done through the task force, through engaging with Canadians, to ensure that we have a robust framework for the legalization, strict regulation of cannabis in July of 2018.
Order. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, the nail clipper lobby seems to have a lot of influence with the Minister of Transport when he says that 6-centimeter long blades will let people clean their nails in the airplane. He's making a mockery of the situation. Nothing justifies allowing knives in an airplane cabin when they could be safely stored in checked luggage. Will the minister listen to reason and leave knives on the list of banned items? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, the safety of passengers and of our air transport system is a priority. From time to time, we review the list of products and objects that are allowed or not allowed in airplanes. In this case, we decided to accept certain products, and in fact what we're doing is aligning ourselves with international standards. This has nothing to do with pandering to any group. We are doing this for one reason and one reason only, and that is to ensure the safety of certain items which will be allowed or not allowed. Thank you.
Ordre du jour.
Orders of the day.
Government orders, government bills commons. C-45,
Cannabis Act.
Is rising on a point of order?
I am indeed, Mr. Speaker. It's in reference to a question period, and I would like to seek unanimous consent to table documents that illustrate what the leader of the official opposition was saying, that in fact there is Liberal culpability on the Phoenix Pay fiasco.
There is unanimous consent. There is no unanimous consent.